Hello. Give just a couple seconds for everything to stream on and get connected. Today we're going to be talking about where not to live in Utah. So some good juicy stuff. Alright, we should be live on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Awesome. So as you go through with me today, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in any of those chats. They will pop through to me. You can also text me. You could also call me and we could pause and have a conversation about what's going on. It sounds like my sound is finally working well, if I can hear it in my ear right. If you hear any sound issues, Slack me. Too many places have different chat tools. Put it in the chat and I'll make sure to adjust it any which way we need. As part of where and the idea of where not to live in Utah, I wanted to talk about a few things. First, obviously everybody's got a neighborhood preference. I don't think there's necessarily neighborhoods to stay away from in Utah. Everybody has a different group of folks that they like to surround themselves, an environment they like to surround themselves with. There's not, like in larger cities you might hear of like these massive ghettos where it's unsafe to go. There's really no place like that in Utah, fortunately. So I don't think there's really anything to worry about there, but part of the conversation with a realtor like me is establishing what are the preferences, what are your priorities, what environment do you like to be around, and based on that, we'll find those neighborhoods of where to find a spot. So the bigger piece I wanted to talk about today is geological and like natural disasters. There's a lot that I look at when I'm buying a home that I don't think many people consider. So should be some good stuff. Let's see if we've got any other questions popping in. Nothing yet. All right. Okay. Let me find a map. So if you've lived in Utah a while, or you're not from the area, you for sure know we have a huge mountain range on the east side of the valley. Do you know where mountains come from? It's kind of a loaded question. Mountains come from tectonic plates colliding and then pushing, dirt, soil, rocks up to make a mountain. So there is a fault line along those big, beautiful mountains. That is one area that I like. It's beautiful, and those people who live on the bench, that's amazing. I couldn't do it. Utah is, they've had this saying for years and years and years that we're due a, large earthquake, like at least a 6.0 or something. And I think a lot of the studies show that essentially from that mountain range all the way to like California, it moves essentially like an inch a year, I believe. It gets closer and closer and closer to California and pushes, California's going to fall into the ocean is always the thing that we learned when we were growing up. So for me, living in an area like that where there's a potential of a massive land movement, that's a no-go for me. If you do live there and you are comfortable with that risk, I think that's the key. It's being comfortable with the risk, knowing what you're getting into, and should even a small earthquake happen, being ready, having earthquake insurance. If you didn't know that was a thing, that is a thing. I have earthquake insurance on all my properties, and they're not in, on a fault line or anything like that. I live myself in West Jordan, and just at the start of COVID, we had, I think it was like a 4, maybe a 5 earthquake out in like the Magna area, and it shook my house pretty good. For those of you who've known me for a while, I had a large aquarium, like a 210-gallon aquarium, and it, sloshed out about 5 gallons of water onto the floor. But it was like a 7 a.m. earthquake, so we were still kind of dozy in bed. But I that's scary. Jump out of bed from like, what the heck was that? Why, like, I had never been in an earthquake before. That was my first one. So definitely not a fun experience to wake up to. The other hard part about it is all the tremors that continue to happen for hours and days after. Just keeps grinding on your nerves. Is it going to be a bigger one? Is it going to be a bigger one? Those folks who live in California, they're probably used to this. It's a way of life. Utah is a pretty solid place, literally, with the ground, except for, geologists telling us that the big one's coming. So, yeah, for me, anywhere near a fault line, nope. Not a good spot to live in Utah, in my opinion. The other thing that ties to earthquakes, I'm trying to find a good map of it. Let's see what we got. Some of these smaller maps might have to do. Oh, this one might work. I was thinking Google Maps, but let's see, that one. No, that's not a very good one. Oh, it let me download it. Let's see if that will work better. Okay, it's a JPEG. Let's open this up. This will be better to kind of visualize. Yes, this will work great. Okay. All right, let me share a screen here. Let me go to, it's window capture. Okay, we're going to use just that one then. This is all the waterways in Utah. So if you're not familiar with Utah, we have the big Great Salt Lake. I think everybody kind of knows that one. This is an older picture. It's a good bit smaller than that now. There's also Utah Lake. That's probably one of our next biggest. And then we do have Lake Powell, which is, massive, but it's teeny little channels. But cumulatively, it is huge compared to these lakes. Some of the other reservoirs we have are Deer Creek is up the Provo Canyon. We have Jordanelle that's further up the Provo Canyon. We have the Strawberry Reservoir, Starvation Reservoir. These were all built, I want to say, back in the 60s. And the idea was water conservation and being able to have water throughout the year, even if we have a really dry winter, literally a dry winter from not having enough snowpack. These reservoirs would hold back enough water and not just let it all flow down, so that we could have enough water to live throughout the year. So what makes me nervous about this is earthquakes, because these all have dams. Let's start Starvation. Let's look at that one. So if we go Starvation Reservoir Dam, let's see if we've got some images of it. So it's literally just this huge dirt pile, and it has a spillway, for over the top. Let's see if there's any other good photos of it. Probably not. And Starvation's not huge, but it's big enough. So one of the fears, here's a better photo of it. Yeah, so you can see that right across. So one of the, I guess, fears or nervousness items that I have about earthquakes is if we were to have an earthquake and this dam were to break, what's going to happen? Where's that water going? A good chunk of Starvation flows into Strawberry Reservoir. Which is just exactly the same thing. That's the Soldier Creek side. But if, we had an earthquake and Starvation's dam broke, all that water, it's got to go somewhere. It's going to flow somewhere. It's going to end up in, Starvation or Strawberry and Soldier Creek. With that much water, since the reservoirs, usually they keep them around 80%, they can adjust how much water is going in and out, or at least out. You're likely going to flood over that. And if it's been an earthquake, did this one break too? And is all the water from this one also flowing down somewhere downstream? There's connections between Strawberry and Jordanelle. And I'm just kind of going reservoirs east to kind of the Salt Lake Valley, Utah Valley, because that's kind of the flow and where they're all connected. So Jordanelle is right near Midway, Heber. It's up in the mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I used to boat there quite often. It's a little narrower, but it's pretty deep. That doesn't look like... Oh, that's Pineview Dam. Yeah, wrong one. Let's go back to Jordanelle. Oh, I wanted that one open. Oh well. This looks like Jordanelle. Yep. Got some good copyright on the image. So the roadway is over here on the side. You've got Park City back up in those hills. And then this road goes down to Midway and Heber. And from this point on, it's all downhill. So again, if we had an earthquake and kind of that cascading effect, reservoir to reservoir to reservoir, or even just one of them could potentially catastrophize the entire system. And I'm not a structural engineer, and I'm not trying to scare folks and have doomsday. I'll explain kind of where this is all going. So for me, living in Heber, I don't know if I could do it. Living downstream of, a big reservoir like that. Let me kind of show you where this all lands geographically. So here's Heber City. You see Deer Creek. We haven't gotten to Deer Creek yet. But you see all these little waterways. These all are what flow to Jordanelle. So if this massive amount of water, maybe I've seen too many, scary movies or suspense shows, but this massive amount of water is going to come flowing down through these rivers and canals, and it's going to exceed what that little river can hold. It's going to just, be millions of times wider with just the amount of water that's in there. So flood. There's definitely going to be lots of property damage. Some homes are probably going to be totally wiped out. Midway, you might be okay because this is actually up a little bit on elevation. And there are definitely some spots to kind of watch for. But then going along that same lines, if Jordanelle breaks, that water's going to end up in Deer Creek. Deer Creek is a reservoir as well, with a dam. Deer Creek Reservoir Dam. Let's see. Yeah, they actually redid the bridge on this one a few years. Oh gosh, it's probably been like 20 years now, honestly. I don't know why that's not bigger. That drives me nuts. There we go. Okay. So the road, you can see it used to go here along the edge, and then you drive all the way across the top of the dam. And now, since they've had to make the road wider, it goes across the canyon here. So this is a bridge, and then it connects back on and works its way around. This is deceptive. Like, this picture does not give this justice. This is a big dam. So same thing. Should this dam break? And it's not even, the kind of where we are in the world. It may not even just be natural disaster. It could be terrorism. Somebody maybe comes up here with a bomb, and people aren't going to be able to respond quick enough to fix a dam. Most of the time, to build dams, they have to build this big structure to hold the water back, build the dam, and then slowly let the water in and build it up. If it's just all of a sudden got a hole in it, that hole's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if we follow Deer Creek, this goes down Provo Canyon, goes down the Provo River. So it's big enough that this whole canyon is just going to be a big river. So all these parks are probably going to get totally washed out. There's some housing up through here, but not too much. Then you have the river bottoms. It is literally called that because it is like the lowest area in the Utah Valley, like this Provo area valley. And you can kind of see again the waterway where it's going. So I think I would envision millions, if not billions and trillions of gallons of water coming down fast. Likely all these homes are at least going to flood. Some of them are probably going to be washed away. And that's heartbreaking to hear. So one of the things that I look for is I look for properties that are away from fault lines and that are away from waterways. Those of you who know me, like, I used to have a boat. I love the water. But I want where I live to be a little more stable and secure should something happen. Again, maybe that's a doomsday mentality, but also a little bit of a realist. So anywhere that the Provo River flows, and people who live here, they see, even just in the spring, the Provo River gets full with all the runoff that's coming when stuff starts melting. And many people have died by trying to either wade in there or they trip and fall, and that water's moving so fast that they just get pulled under, sucked under, and they can't people can't get to them because the water's moving so fast. So this flows down around BYU. Brigham Young University, BYU, is up on a hill, so this flows down around the hill, and then it flows out to Utah Lake State Park. Next piece. If we've had Deer Creek or Strawberry or Jordanelle or Starvation or all of them break, and all that water has flowed down into Utah Lake's probably going to double in size. A lot of this area right next to the lake is very, very shallow. Most of Utah Lake, like the deepest part of Utah Lake, is around 25 feet. It is a super flat lake as far as like the elevation under the water, and it has, almost like half a mile of shoreline that's like under 5 feet deep. So if it's adding water to it, it's going to just, really blossom out. Most of the Orem Provo area is on a hill, so hopefully that would be fine. Orem is an example. I think that would be a great place to live because any of this water is just going to work its way around it. Some areas in Provo would be fine. Some areas in Provo I would stick away from. So then Utah Lake has, doubled in size. All these new homes that they've been building around Saratoga that are right on the water. I mean, again, it's beautiful, and I would love to live there and kayak every day on the lake. But I would rather have somewhere that I don't have to worry about that. A lot of Saratoga, it does go up on a hill pretty quick, so that area I imagine would be fine. But a lot of this Lehigh American Fork area, you these places already can't have basements because the water table is so high. Literally, if you go out and like dig 5 feet, you have standing water. Um, a lot of them have crawl spaces to make sure that the area is clear, and that you're not getting water actually into the home. But yeah, so should Utah Lake double in size, you've got obviously the surrounding area that's impacted. There's no real dam to break in Utah Lake because it is a lake, not a reservoir. Fun fact, reservoirs are built, lakes are already established. They're natural. There is a little bit of a dam that they have created up here at the where it goes out. And what this dam's intention is actually to suck more water out of the lake and feed the Jordan River. So many things across where the Jordan River flows, like Daybreak, they suck water out of the Jordan River. There's a lot of areas and stuff like that use that water either for irrigation. Some of it, I think, gets filtered and could be used for drinking water. But the lakes in Daybreak, all that kind of stuff. So they built that. It's still a lake, but they built that to try and manage the water flow a little bit better. So again, if we've now doubled this in size, all that water is going to keep flowing down through the Jordan River. A lot of these areas would flood. Hopefully at this point, the water, the intensity of water coming down a canyon of a whole dam breaking has slowed down because Utah Lake is so massive. You'll probably have a wave, almost like a mini tsunami wave at the beginning. But then after that, it's going to be just like a cup. You're going to just be pouring water, and it's just going to keep flowing into that Jordan River. So the Jordan River flows, here's Point of the Mountain, so it flows through here. Let's see where else. It kind of goes underneath in certain places, so we'll see how far we can track it. Goes through Bluffdale. There's some little shoot-offs that you see here. Up through Riverton, South Jordan, behind Smith and Edwards. We're here kind of in West Valley now. All these homes next to this, I imagine, would flood. And then it goes up here through Taylorsville. And you can see there's kind of a couple shoot-offs that they've made of it. Here I think it goes underground for a while. Let's zoom out. West Valley. Let's see this one. Where's this one running to? Yeah, they put it underground and then it pops out kind of right through here. And then it ends up in the Great Salt Lake. So yeah, imagine that if we had Jordanelle burst this canyon near Heber, probably washed out. Deer Creek, if that were to burst, you've got all this Provo area all the way down to Utah Lake, probably washed out. All of the surrounding area of Utah Lake underwater. All the area following that Jordan River all the way up through the Salt Lake Valley to the Great Salt Lake, probably underwater, flooding, maybe less catastrophe through the Salt Lake Valley at that point, and not total losses. I think once it would get to the Great Salt Lake, there's probably enough land and capacity for that lake to hold most of that water. You've already probably heard a lot of the concerns about the Great Salt Lake being lower than it normally is, and because it's like that end of the line for all these lakes and reservoirs. There's a lot of heavy minerals. There's a lot of things like arsenic, lead, all that in the mud, in the dirt. When it's dry, that dirt can get kicked up in the wind, and then you have this cloud coming to you with arsenic and lead in it. Yay, that's yummy. There's a lot of things happening to keep the Great Salt Lake, as with good water levels, so that we don't have things like that happening. Yeah. So those are two of the things I look for. So to give you some examples, so I live in West Valley, in West Jordan, and I'm actually pretty near this airport. And if you were to look at the if you were to look at the elevation changes throughout the valley, most of the Salt Lake Valley is like a slow climbing in bowl. Let's see, make sure I'm on the right cameras. It kind of goes down to the Jordan River, and then it slowly kind of gains an elevation as you get out to the benches, and then you have the mountains. So I'm kind of over on one of those higher edges in West Jordan. So the reason I picked this is I thought, if that ever were to happen, I am so far away from the Jordan River that I doubt water would get to me. And it may. Maybe I've made a bad choice, but I'm also clear over here, away from any fault lines, not near any big mountains, big buildings that are going to fall, things like that. Maybe that's living in fear. Maybe that's preparedness. But I enjoy where I live and have great peace of mind. I want to see if I can find some of the fault lines maps. Utah fault line maps. Yeah, we've got a few things here. Oh, I love it. Let's see. So here's kind of a first image. And I know this is a little small on Instagram, but YouTube, on the other channels, it is a larger view. So feel free to join over there too, or watch the playback over there. This fault line traces clear up from Idaho down through Brigham City, Ogden. It's this entire mountain range, through Salt Lake City, down through Provo, down through Nephi, down through Levan. That is the fault line. It's huge. It's definitely not nearly as active as some of those California ones. I don't know why we've picked to live right next to a fault line, but that's where the valleys all lie. And I get it, the mountains are beautiful. We've got all these valley areas right next to it. We're close to water, close enough to water. Let's see if there's any others that are maybe a little more zoomed in. Ooh, landslides. That reminded me of something else we should look at. Oh, that's the same image. Early warning system. Exposing the Wasatch Fault. This is kind of a cool site, yeah. Recent Utah earthquakes. Ooh, well, can't be reached. Okay, well, nice try. I was going to say, let's see what's been happening. It's going to be different. Landslides is another contention in Utah. if a lot of people don't know this, but Utah used to be mostly underwater, with what was called Lake Bonneville. Like here you can see how massive. Oh, we got a security check required. Please hold. Verifying I'm human. Like, come on, you're taking way too long. Alright, we're gonna come back here. So this is the entire state. You can see, like, down to Cedar City. This was all this big, massive lake. That's the Great Salt Lake in there to give you perspective. Utah County, you know, further down. All along the mountain range right there. Here's Wikipedia. This might be a better spot to see the image. This is, I think, once it got a little smaller. Yeah, there's kind of an example of the whole West Coast. So because of this, because Utah used to be a lake, there's a lot of areas that are shorelines. And what are shorelines when you think of like the ocean? It's sand. It's a sandy beach. So some of the bench areas that folks have built on are literally on sand traps, and we've had landslides from too much water. Yeah, that's the Great Salt Lake as an example. You can see kind of where Utah Lake down there. So that entire Utah County Valley was nothing but water. The entire Salt Lake Valley was water. Davis up here, that's all water. And then you've got clear out to Tooele was nothing but water. And then all the way down, yeah, like it's nice to see that mountain range with that as well. So some of the bench areas around the valleys are really prone to landslides. Hey, look, it's Utah. So if we kind of come in here, and you definitely see this more as you drive around. But here at Point of the Mountain, as you go on I-15, you see all the dirt excavation that they've been doing. I remember when that mountain essentially was right up next to the road as a kid, and then they've just continued to eat it away. They're able to essentially eat it away and use it for other things because it's sand. It's a huge sandbar. But what's awkward is you've got all these homes here on this sandbar. This is like where Cabela's is. You see that off the freeway. Thanksgiving Point is kind of on the other side of the freeway here. You also have this whole Draper side where there's tons of homes. They've had homes literally slide off the hill here. Sure, you can blame builders. You can say that they didn't do proper geology studies, but ultimately you chose to live there. Part of your due diligence of buying a home is looking at those geological conditions, assessing every possible aspect of the home to make sure it's where you want to live, where you're comfortable living. These homes are gorgeous, right? And they look over the entire valley. It's beautiful. I wouldn't want to live there, though. I go up and use those parks all the time for different things, but I wouldn't want to live there for the risk of just that it's a sand hill. As soon as you add water to sand and any little movement, it just, if you have a glass of sand at the beach, you stick it in, pack it in on the side, and it stays. But the second you add any little bit of water, it just goes flat. That's what happens in real life, too, because that is real life. the top of Draper Mountain, this I don't think is an issue. This, I think you're actually on bedrock up here. So I don't think here is necessarily a concern. What is this area called again? Suncrest, that's right. Like Suncrest, something. This area, I mean, again, it's gorgeous. Some of the homes, you can see both valleys in both directions, and it's incredible. So the other area that is a big sandbar is between Salt Lake and North Salt Lake. Same here. If you drive on I-15, you see all the excavation that they're chipping away at that dirt. We've had many landslides through here, this whole big area. When we have those really wet rain, snowy winters, the ground just gets saturated, and just like in that water bottle or cup at the beach, the sand starts to slide. So yeah, this whole area here, not a place to live in my opinion. Out here, the other parts of North Salt Lake, you have a lot of kind of swampland that you're living in. It's super low elevation. Same, if we didn't have an earthquake, if we didn't have dams breaking, we just had a couple super wet years, this water table, you know, digging 5 feet down, you're in water, it's gonna be at ground level. It won't take that much for you to either potentially have flooding in your home, or like be driving in water. And in these areas where they're lower like this, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot. You could try to build like a retaining wall with sandbags, but you're literally fighting against the entire Great Salt Lake. There's so much water there, just not realistic. Yeah, where not to live in Utah. So some of my favorite places that I've considered living. One is Saratoga Springs, up a little bit higher on the hill. This is a pretty steep hill through here. I would love to be closer to the water. A lot of people think, ooh, gross, Utah Lake. Utah Lake is actually just silty. So one of the types of dirts is like this really fine. They call it silt, but it's almost like a dust. And when it gets wet, it just floats around in the water. Normal dirt or rocks you throw in and they sink to the bottom. This just kind of floats around. So that is why Utah Lake isn't like clear blue, is that area of dirt just has a lot of silt, so it mixes in the water and just stays in the water floating. I love Utah Lake because, like we talked about, it's pretty shallow, which means it's relatively warm compared to a lot of the others. Right near where the water comes in from the Provo Canyon, from the Provo River, that area is colder. Out here, it's called West Mountain. There's a few natural springs over here, and they're pushing up warm water, so this area is actually pretty nice. And then once you get over here, saying the water's kind of mixed in, and it's had, being so shallow, having the sun shining on it, it gets relatively warm. It's not super cold. Let's see if I can make this map a little crisper. Maybe I'm pushing my bandwidth here. Show imagery. Let's see what we got. Just that stuff. Let's see. Another area that I love West Jordan. I love South Jordan. I wouldn't want to live in Daybreak, but I do like the environment of Daybreak, having those lakes there, having, kind of those waterways. Again, Daybreak's kind of up off the hill, up on a hill plateau kind of thing compared to the rest of the valley. I do like a little bit more of the ridgeline in kind of the Spanish Fork area. Again, that's getting close to a fault line, so I'm not sure how much I would want to go for that. And then I've got a few rental properties. Two of them are in West Valley area, and then one of them is in kind of Kearns area, kind of through here. And then as you can see, I'm right about there. So a lot of mine are about the same amount of area west, kind of that same lifted up elevation. Sure, risk of earthquake and other stuff still to happen, but much further away than anything else. What are some of your favorite or least favorite areas to live? I know a lot of people love downtown, just with all the skyscrapers, that city life. Let's see if we can zoom in and get some clarity on this image. And Google is not having it today. Yeah, if you look, like the Natural History Museum, this is literally the fault line. Like the University of Utah is right on the fault line. These hospitals, these houses, I don't know, just not for me. Fun fact, let's see if we can, let's see, Bonneville Shoreline Trail. So talking about the Bonneville Lake, there is a great way you can actually see this. So this isn't too bad of a view. You can see the mountain comes down, there's kind of a flat area, and then it goes down again. This is essentially the shoreline of where Lake Bonneville was. So this is called Bonneville Shoreline Trail, where you can go hike it. Yeah, see that area through here? It almost looks like a man-made road, but it's not. It is natural. I'm trying to see a better, like, zoomed out photo. Because literally as you're driving around the valley, you can see it. You see that ridge there. Yeah, so like this here, you see that ridge. They've now added some other bridges, and like there's a Draper suspension bridge that's incredible. I encourage anybody to at least go see where that is, and then turn around and look at the valley and just think, if I'm on the shoreline, this is all underwater, right? Like there's, and over on the other mountains you can kind of see the shoreline as well, but it just gives you that perspective and kind of that awe of what that would look like. I mean, the entire Salt Lake and Utah valleys is underwater. It's just a big lake. Puts the Great Salt Lake to shame. Yeah, there's water towers. Yeah, kind of interesting. What other questions do we have? We've talked a lot about a lot of different stuff. diligence stuff. Okay, yeah. Let me pull up a few things and we can look through that. Let's see. I have an email. I can pull that up. So the question was kind of like, what are the other due diligence items? Like if you're looking through where not to live, what are the other things to be considering and looking at when you're, buying a place? There's a whole due diligence portion and timeline of a contract to, buy a home. So let's cruise through that. Let's see. Pull it up here. Go to link. Nope. I'm in the browser. Okay, that's coming up right now. So I have buyers and sellers handbooks, and I put these together as kind of a guide, get to know me a little bit better. If you want to grab one of these, on my website, kaprealestate.com/guides, you can put on there to request one and it will shoot you one over. Let me just even show you. Yep, right here. Just drop your info, hit submit, and it'll send it right over to you. So if we look through here, I do have the due diligence pieces in here, just kind of an introduction level, a letter, some things that make me unique. So here's your rough timeline for buying a home. Selecting an agent, number one. Preparation, what's your budget, what do you want in a home, finding a lender, title company, getting everything set up, getting pre-approval, and then step forward, the home search, kind of the fun stuff, going and looking at different properties. Step 5, we'd want to evaluate properties, see what's actually a good fit, what makes sense for you, make an offer, figure out what those timelines, prices, inclusions, exclusions, what's important. And then step 7 is due diligence, so we'll go through that. And then settlement and closing, that's where you sign all the documents. Here's some things I do as my service difference. Okay, so here are kind of the main areas that a lot of people will evaluate as part of due diligence. One is looking at the title report. So this is something that a title agent would pull for you. This shows you all the liens. There's usually always something about mineral rights. Most of the time it's just irrelevant to the home, but it's part of policies they're excluded. That if you discover you have mineral rights, nobody could have known that, so there might not be coverage for stuff like that. Part of the title process is getting title insurance. So if somebody comes back later and tries to claim, put a lien on the property, the title insurance is meant to cover that so that you can have the home free and clear. We double check mortgage amounts, mortgages, the owners, all that is part of title process to make sure we're buying from somebody who's correct, who can sell it, who's going to be able to pay it off. We'll look at all that stuff. Inspections. So you can do a general inspection, and I recommend this. This is having like a certified inspector. They comb through every piece of the home. They'll check the grounding on every outlet they can get to. They'll look and inspect. They'll do temperature, like infrared camera pictures throughout the home. What those do is they show you, like as example on a ceiling, if you're missing some insulation in an area, the temperature will be different there from somewhere else that has insulation. And void of literally going there and measuring the temperature of being able to use a camera, it'll show digitally this area is cold, this area is hot, stuff like that. They come back with a list of everything to look at, everything that's wrong, everything that's a warning. It really gives you a good assessment of the property. You can also do like a sewer inspection. They'll literally take a camera and shove it either down the toilet or they'll find a floor drain to run it through, and they'll follow the plumbing lines underground out to the street. This is so helpful because replacing that sewer line can sometimes be like $20,000 to $50,000, and you're paid a couple $100 to shove a camera down there and see that it's okay. Brand new homes, you run the risk of settling, so sometimes that pipe can become disconnected from settling. Old homes, you run the risk of corrosion, and that pipe either compacting over time and compressing from dirt or rocks or something. Or some of the really old homes, they were made with clay, and that clay is just going to degrade over time. Homes that are in the middle, sometimes you run the risk of plants and roots getting in there. So if you have an inspection and see that that's happening, you kind of now know, hey, it's good, or I need to proactively do some maintenance and run a jetter through there from a plumbing company, something that scrapes and eats all the roots off so that the water can continue flow. And you'll need to do that, every year, every couple of years, something like that, to maintain it. Just having so much more information, so helpful. Then you go into testing. You can test radon. I encourage that. I have a blog post on my website about radon. Most homes have radon in Utah, so if you've not tested for a while, $20, $10 is the test. When we do it for an inspection, it's usually on the $100, $200 range, and the difference is the one you can get for $10 or $20 is just like a little charcoal tray that you set out for a couple days, and then you seal it off, send it in. The one that we do for home inspections is live monitoring. So it does a sample every like 10 minutes over the course of 2 days, and it gives you the results right away. This is important because oftentimes with contract dates of buying a home, you can't wait that long to have it sent off, get the results back. You need those results right away. It also gives you so much more data points, whereas the charcoal thing is just going to give you an average over the time. If you wanted to do the live monitoring one right away and you're not buying a home, you can do that too. Great. Meth testing, they wipe certain areas of the home to then send it off to a lab to see, is there any meth residue? Has meth been made, cooked, or smoked in this home? And there are certain levels that it's considered unsafe, and the health department will literally like condemn the home and like yellow tape around it. You can't go in until this is fixed. Mold. This is a weird one because me having Lyme disease, I know that mold, I'm super susceptible to mold, but there's not really any, other than like the black mold that you see like a whole wall, there's not any specific like measurements that are going to condemn a home unless it's way crazy. But yeah, having those tests done to know what's going on. Another one is cost. How much is homeowners insurance going to be? If you're going to remodel, having a contractor come and do some analysis, all those kind of things. You want to put in a sauna downstairs? Does it have the capacity to do that? The space, the power, the water, all that kind of stuff. Amenities. Do you need fiber internet? Do you do some sort of work or streaming like I'm doing where you need fast, quick internet? Maybe that's not available in your area. Maybe you only have, Comcast or Xfinity. What about a pool, workout room, all that kind of stuff? The other couple pieces that aren't here are things like that geological condition. Is there testing? Is there historical stuff you need to look into? HOAs are another big one. Let's look at the financials. We talked a little bit about this last week. Looking at the financials, making sure they're in a good spot. What are the rules? Are you comfortable living in that? What does all that look like for you? Usually we give 2 weeks for due diligence, which covers all those items, and gives you ample time to look through and kind of see and make sure that the home is a good fit for you. And then this has just a sample contract for folks to look at. Okay, well, we are coming up on time. Let's see, our next live stream, I believe we are up next Tuesday on the 18th. Let me double check. When I'm live streaming, everything else slows down, so bear with me a second. Yep, and I've got on my website, kaprealestate.com/events, I've got all my live streams listed and what the topics are for them. So next week, both the Tuesday at 5 p.m. and Friday at 9 a.m., we're going to be talking about quick fix tips for homes, systems of a home, things that maybe if you've never been a homeowner and don't know how a home works beyond the the physical stuff. That's where we're going to talk and see what we can share and learn. If you have any questions, even outside of this, feel free to reach out. Book coffee or tea with me if you want to talk privately about maybe some questions you have or your situation. No pressure, no judgment, just help in any way I can. But all right, we'll sign off for now. Talk to y'all later.